Greetings and welcome to another edition of AUHSD Future Talks. I'm your host, Superintendent Matsuda of the Anaheim Union High School District. And as our 7,000 plus podcast listeners and viewers know, this show is dedicated to the future of education, future of jobs, and the future of life for our 29,000 AUHSD students. And we've been blessed to have so many amazing guests, from college presidents to CEOs to amazing teachers and educators, but also this is all about our students. So we have today our student trustee, Abdullah Fattahi from Oxford Academy, but he is rounding out his year as pretty much a student board member, representing those 29,000 students. An amazing, amazing young man. Abdullah, welcome to our show.
Hi, Superintendent Matsuda. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
So as you know, I always start off with the question about who you are, right? And what we kind of end with what your plans are. But you have a very unique background. Could you tell the audience a little bit about who you are, Abdullah?
Yeah, so my name is Abdullah. I'm a Syrian American. I was born here, but my family immigrated here just before I was born. So they immigrated here from Syria, both my mom and my dad. And I don't really get to talk about much of my, or not many people know about my ethnicity, because there's not really many Syrian Americans in where I live, or like where I'm from, especially at Oxford. So I think my identity has kind of been really important to me recently, when I started realizing that it's important for me to show who I am and talk about my ethnicity, because it really does play a huge part of who I am. And I think a big part of what I do today, while I do represent all students across the district and all students that I'm here for, I'm really here. I really want to make sure that I'm supporting students that are like me, Syrian Americans, and making sure that I can help them and kind of serve as a role model. And it really is what drives me. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful that you embrace your ethnicity, but you're such a amazing leader, because I think that students, no matter their ethnicity or gender, they feel connected to you and to the other ambassadors, and they do feel that they have a voice. You know, in this age, how important do you think student voice is, and you know, as they try to navigate their futures?
I think student voice is really the groundwork of our education. To kind of branch off, but I'll come back. The way I got into this position in 7th grade, I was like a shy little kid, and some senior at the time came up to me, who I found out was the ambassador at the time, came up to me and approached me and said that she'd love for me to join the club RSVP, Raising Student Voice and Participation. And it was from there that it really changed my trajectory to where I got to where I am today, which really allows me to elevate the voices of other students. And if that senior at that time hadn't come out and reached out to me, I don't think I would be in the place that I was. And I think that the connections we make as students and staff and all these other stakeholders in our community, the connections that we make is really what drives the community. And if you don't allow students to have their voices heard, it's really a one-sided conversation with the adults. But I think in our district, AUHSD, what's really important is that one of our drivers is student voice and purpose. So what's really important is that we allow these students to show what they want to say, because from having conversations, me personally, with students across the district, in this position, I've gotten to see so many new opinions and so many new experiences that I personally cannot know just by myself. So it's these conversations that I'm having and raising the voice of students that maybe might have been too shy to speak up or reach out to other people. It's about elevating those voices and hearing what they have to say to make sure that our community is working to support each other and making sure that everyone's voices are heard.
You know, Abdullah, as a student trustee, you lead the district in a moment of silence, and we've been so impressed with your very poignant messages about the moment of silence. And the last moment of silence, which is pretty much your last time on the dais as the trustee before graduation. There's obviously a lot of great news coming out of the district for graduation. This is a time of excitement. But your moment of silence, even though you pointed that out, you reminded the audience of those students who are not here because they have they have died. Across America, there's been a lot of shootings and certainly a lot of drunk drivings and even suicide. But it was very poignant. What made you decide to kind of remind us of the students who are not here for graduation?
Yeah, I think when I was trying to plan out that moment of silence, I don't want to like make people like put people in a bad mood, but I think it's important to kind of like really talk about things that we kind of think of as taboo to talk in just like normal conversations. So when I was thinking about like, oh, this is the end of the year, what topics can I talk about? I started thinking about graduation, and I really reflected on how some people in our state, in our country, across the world, won't be able to have those same experiences that I'm having now because of violence in the school, which I think is the last thing that needs to be happening. School is a place where students can learn and talk and meet their friends and enjoy their time. And if we're having school, if we have to worry about school being a place where I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to come back home or walk at graduation this year, that's really an issue. And I think that really stems from violence and mental health. And I mean, especially like the shooting in Buffalo, that was someone that was like my age. And if we are allowing these students to get to that point, there's clearly an issue with mental health and just to how they're getting to that point. Because as someone who's basically a kid that felt that they needed to have that much violence towards a certain community, there's clearly a systemic issue with the teaching of how that's happening and making sure that students, and not just our entire community, the people that we're raising, are understanding that as a community, we need to work together and not just be so divisive and have this much hatred. And that's why I think it was really important to me to have that moment of silence, because those innocent lives were lost that could have been treated at so many different levels, whether we want to be proactive or whatever it is. We need to make sure that these students, these lives, these human lives are protected. And it is a tough issue to talk about. And I think I was kind of scared to talk about that at the board meeting because it was a celebratory meeting and I wanted to make sure that was expressed, but I also wanted to acknowledge that these lives were lost and it could have been prevented if we at different levels addressed mental health and addressed divisiveness and just made sure that we're all working together rather than being so split on these different issues.
Well, it was very powerful because it made us all think about who wasn't there, right?
Yeah.
And they could also be joining us across America and celebrating their graduation. So very powerful, very courageous statement that you made, Abdullah. And, you know, I often say that of the 5 C's, the 5th C is the most important: compassion and character, kindness, however you want to interpret that. I am so proud of all of the ambassadors, and our audience may or may not know that we have student ambassadors representing all of our high schools, including Gilbert and Hope as well. And it's a very diverse group. Could you, and I, from what I could tell, very close group. And without the experience of the ambassadors, perhaps, you know, you'd be a different person, just an Oxford student rather than an AUHSD student. What is the difference, and why is that so important, do you think, that you guys are all coming out kind of more representing AUHSD rather than just your individual schools?
Yeah. So like I mentioned earlier, I think that in our individual, as connected as our district is, at some point, students, we want to get away from students thinking of, oh, I'm a Kennedy student, or I'm Anaheim or Sycamore student. We want to sort of push the narrative that we're AUHSD. And I think that's really what the district has been successfully doing this year. And I think that's what the ambassadors are really trying to do, because when I was going to this ambassador program, I was expecting a very like business kind of thing where, of course, we do work, and we do now. It's not just all fun, but we definitely do have our fun. And it's because we're bringing in so many of these different personalities, ethnicities, communities, genders, different backgrounds, and everything is coming into one, and we're able to share experiences as different kinds of people. I'm really proud because I'm an Anaheim resident and I go to Oxford, so I'm kind of understand that different dynamic from Oxford and Cyprus areas. And I think that I really got to see that when we got to kind of share ideas and share our backgrounds, and just talk about like going out to eat. Like we'd be like, oh, you guys have never had Korean barbecue before? And like, it's like all these different ideas, and like going to get like, if you've been by the district, there's Tacos Los Güeros #2. It really is, because after a meeting we'll be like, let's get some tacos, and like we'll just share some different like experiences and like life experiences that we've had over some horchata. And it's like, it's really amazing, because I mentioned earlier that I'm a Syrian American, but not many people know that. Like I look white, and it's easy to think that like, oh, he's just an American. But with those conversations, I got to share that like, oh yeah, I eat this kind of food, and like it's really similar to like Mexican food, and like I'm always having these conversations with my other friends, these ambassador friends, and I'm really glad that I got to make these lifelong friends. And if they're listening right now, I love my ambassador team, and I'm so proud of like what we got to do as a team, but more as like a family and as friends. So it's really great to see how people with completely different backgrounds can form such close friendships. So,
you know, one of the things that the ambassadors did was a presentation to the coffee with the principals on the CPSF, and which includes the 5 C's, and you know, trying to build career pathways and try to build career and life readiness. Right? We kind of tout that we are a district that's really focused on shifting from standardized testing to more to skills that are going to help a student throughout life. Do you feel, I mean, as a senior looking back, do you feel that we did that?
Oh my gosh, yeah. I definitely think that like there were so many things that were being thrown at me like when I was at a younger age that I didn't realize were intentionally made so I could succeed in the future, right? Like dual enrollment, for example. I just thought that was a normal thing that like most people got to do, but I realized that it's really a privilege. And I didn't wrap my head around until maybe sophomore year about how crucial those classes were. I mean, I've taken like English courses instead of my AP class that is giving me directly college credit, where I don't have to take a test at the end of the year, which I think is a major vision of our district, about not just focusing on that test, that like AP test that we need to take, but more shifting towards getting these life skills. Some people call it soft skills, but we call them what's it called, 21st century skills, to make sure that we're thriving. Going off dual enrollment courses, I even took like a CPR class where I got to learn different CPR techniques. And while it's not like hard math or stuff like that, it's definitely a life skill that you'd want to know in the future. And I think that the district is, and the like lessons that I learned from the 5 C's is really what pushed me to get to that state. And even going along the 5 C's, I feel like that's always incorporated into all of our classes. And I feel like every teacher, even if it's like math or physics, they find a way to incorporate those 5 C's. So to name an example, this year we did a physics boat regatta, and our teacher really emphasized that besides just making the boat, she wanted us to have like a fun like name for the boat, or like a fun theme. So like it wasn't just about making sure that the boat, of course we wanted the boat to work, but we also had to collaborate with our friends and find time outside of just our class schedule to work on the boat, which is a real life skill, because you're not always going to get scheduled time where you can work in the real world. You have to work and talk with your teammates to find times where you can work on those things. So examples like those are really just a small portion of what really it looks like on a day-to-day of how the 5 C's, the CPSF, 21st century skills are really brought in every day. And I think that when we allow students to voice their opinions about those things, it really shows up more at our school sites.
Yeah, and I think you were at the district soapbox speech finals, right? And there were some amazing student voices talking about refugees and immigration and, of course, mental health and all kinds of race relations, all kinds of issues. And that was really an example of the cultivation of student voice. You also had a chance to, I mean, you guys participated in virtually all the major things, STEAM-a-Palooza, right? And what do you think outside students would think about something like STEAM-a-Palooza, or outside parents?
I think it was such a privilege that I got to be at STEAM-a-Palooza in specific, because while I was working for like a good portion of it, when I got to slow down and stop, I saw just a vast majority of students just sharing their own personal experiences across the level. So at one station, you'll see students that are selling their business ideas that they have at the school sites, where they're making real profits right now as seventh graders, eighth graders, whatever it may be, because of the curriculum that they're learning in school, and they get to market it towards students like themselves. And then you'll go inside the gym and you'll see robotic students driving around a robot that can move around boxes and hang on bars, and you'll see hovercrafts and all these different things. And then you'll go to another side and you'll see students that are working with real companies to create inventions. And it's just blowing your mind that all in one site, you're seeing the cultivation of student ideas just coming together and seeing us share everything together. It was so amazing. And I really think it's important that it's STEAM-a-Palooza. So I think in the past we used to talk about STEM, but yeah, STEAM is so important because it's not just about going into STEM. It's the A in STEAM for arts is so important, because we got to see those performances on stage where I got to MC. It was so cool getting to see all these choirs perform. But then also, like you said, the soapbox speeches. I forgot her name, but she was talking, like you said, about refugees, and it was so like profound in her voice. She was so you could tell that there was passion behind that voice, because these are things that she's seeing real life on a daily basis. And I think that most adults or most other districts, it's not easy for them to just have students talk about race and like core issues that are systemic issues in our country. It's not easy for them to let students talk about that. But the fact that our district is allowing students to talk about what's happening in their life and share what we can do as a community to change that is so huge, because it's letting students make real impacts and sharing what really means to them, and showing like what hardships or realities that they're going through. And I don't think that many districts allow that. And I think at STEAM-a-Palooza, you really got to see that on all levels. So
a lot of amazing work by the students, and then that doesn't happen unless you have the teachers setting those things up. But Abdullah, I know we only have a few minutes left, but I do want to ask you quickly. You are one of 4 students, and they're all student ambassadors on the Orange County Equity Task Force, and that's an important. Talk about student voice. Could you explain to our audience what that's all about and why that's important to us?
Yeah. So I'm so honored to be a part of this Orange County Equity Task Force. It's really a task force with, at times, there's like over 200 people in the meeting, and you'll see people from all across Orange County, different companies, organizations, and the AUHSD is a part of it as well. But they reached out to us, myself and 3 other students, because they wanted student voice as a part of this, because there was, I forgot the exact number. How much money are they offering? It's like
15 or 17 million dollars.
Yeah, like $15 million. The county's figuring out how they want to distribute that money. And in our district, we see a lot of places that money could help us. For example, one thing that we're focusing on is food deserts in our community, because there are certain areas in our community where there's a lack of access to healthy foods. But we're tackling that with the Magnolia Agriculture,
Community Center. Yeah.
Where we're hoping to expand that huge farm. I got to visit. It was beautiful, to serve the community and the students, so that it can feed our community and make sure that places in low income areas where there's not really access to grocery stores. We're making sure that we can solve that problem head on, and that food disparity is solved through students' own like cultivation of these plants and stuff. So it was really great that I got to advocate for this and make sure that the money was being distributed in equitable ways so that students and families and communities across our district, not just students that go there, but students across that are living in Anaheim, are able to get access to these foods, and making sure that the money is distributed to the right communities.
I know it's going to be awesome, and I think we are very well positioned. So in the minute or so that we have left, Abdullah, what are your plans? What are you right now, what are your career plans and what are your college plans?
So I'm a senior, so I'm going to be graduating, and I'm glad to be moving on to Harvey Mudd College. So it's one of the 5 Claremont colleges. They're actually called the 5 C's, so I thought that was really interesting. I was like, flashbacks to the 5 C's. But I'm really excited because I'm getting a degree in general engineering, so I can really choose my path along the way because I'm not really sure. And then also they have a huge focus on the humanities, so it really reminds me a lot of the AUHSD district. And in terms for career goals, I really hope to go into environmental engineering and work on sustainability and kind of urban design and planning, so that I can help future cities kind of be future proof and make sure that they're serving the low income communities. And I think a new dream that I kind of found is that I really want to go back to Syria, as it's a war-torn country right now. And when I visited this summer, like all the infrastructure was just torn down, buildings all on the floor. So I really hope to go back once I graduate and kind of help rebuild the city, and help kids like that look like me and that are just like me live in a community where they don't have to worry about like water insecurity or energy insecurity. So I really hope to go back and kind of use what I've learned in high school and hopefully in college as well to serve my community.
Well, we hope to hear more about your journey, Abdullah. And on behalf of our 29,000 students and their families, you have been one amazing student trustee. We're so proud of you, and wish you the best in your future endeavors.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad I got to serve our community and the students at our district. So thank you so much.